California became a bustling state with the gold rush. But when California passed Taste the Rainbow Law, a new rush began, the candy rush. One of the biggest gangsters of that era was Eddie Spurlock, also known as Sweetie. The first and most important interview I conducted was with Nicholas Bergkamp, also known as White Sugar, Sweetie's second in command, and later Brutus.
So you were Eddie's right hand man during the candy rush?
Please, I was the facilitator.
So you're saying if it wasn't for you, almost a million people wouldn't have died?
No, don't do that to me, punk. Don't point out that guy's glory, and then when I mention my involvement in it, bring out the skeletons in the closet.
But there was no glory in this candy rush, Mr. Burkamp. I mean, your group, the Pop Rockets, made close to $500 million a year, but you guys were also specifically responsible for killing hundreds of people to just ensure your empire.
Fine.
Will you still do this interview?
Sure, I'm not trying to downplay the damage and hurt we done, but it wasn't like we were killing people every day. It wasn't like we watched everyone who died or who was involved in it.
I came to stop my line of questioning because I seen that Nick would never truly accept the responsibility he played in the Candy Wars. And since he had the most insight of Sweet E's life before the Candy Rush, I let the question go. Understood. What can you tell me about Sweet E's life?
Sweetie, please don't use that. It's a stupid-ass name. His name was Eddie Spurlock. No one called that to his punk-ass face.
Okay. Can you please tell us how you helped Eddie into the bootlegging business?
So, back in 2023 or 2024 or whatever, sometime after COVID, it all blends together, Eddie found an article about California banning certain candies due to some substance that caused organ failure or could cause cancer. He made a joke about us starting a bootleg candy run to California, and it happened.
In March 15, 2023, New York Post and a few other news sources reported about John Volstead's law proposal of the Taste the Rainbow. The proposal listed Skittles, Sour Patch Kids, Pez, jelly beans, and hot tamale candies, just to name a few, would be banned to be sold in the state of California.
We thought such a law would never pass, but Eddie got the idea that we would bootleg the candy into California and make our fortunes.
The law did pass. After Freddie Jr., a 12-year-old, heard about this law, got scared, and ate all of his stash of Halloween candy that he had been saving for a few years, died of a sugar overdose. After the bizarre death of Freddie Jr. and his binge eating of his candy supply on Halloween night of 2023, a new group of lobbyists were formed called Sugar Free Parents. They lobbied politicians and scientists to prove the dangers of candy that not only had the substances of red dye 3, brominated vegetable oil, but all candies and their adverse effects on children and adults. This propelled the career of Jill Mickle, who rediscovered Johnny Youngkin's discoveries and used them as her own. Dr. Jill Mickle, don't you feel bad about your role in the Candy Rush of 2024?
Listen, my data was correct and it was peer-reviewed. I didn't do any harm, nor did I intend for any harm to happen.
Yes, but the scientists and doctors that peer-reviewed your work were also being funded by the Sugar-Free Parents group.
I'm done. This is bullshit. I didn't come here to
Dr.
be
McKell,
ambushed like
Dr.
this.
McKell, please wait. Well, the law passed in April. It would not be in effect until October 30th of 2023. I talked to Bob McDonald, a former news anchor and talk show host of The Story with Bob McDonald on Fox 11 News for the past 20 years, and the biggest naysayer to the TRL. How did this law get passed and so quickly?
I mean, it was easy. You had the parents' support.
Yeah, but there's always been parent support, yet we still have automatic weapons.
You just hit the nail on the head. You probably didn't realize it, but there are no lobbyists that support or defend the use of red dye 3. Parents didn't attack sugar. If they had, That bill would have been deader than Hitler allegedly is.
But aren't there big candy lobbyists?
No one took it seriously. They thought the whole thing would just blow over. I mean, it was at the peak of that health craze thing, Liver King.
Um, why didn't the big candy companies just change how they make their product?
49 states. One state says, none for me, thanks. And you think they're going to stop? I mean, 39 million is a lot, but they still have 300 million people buying it. And you know, what people want, they're going to get.
It was true. Tell people no, they'll turn around and do it. Well, that's an overgeneralization of people's responses. This is what Sweet E was banking on. Knowing about people's cravings for this candy, Eddie set forth at once to save up money and flew to Las Vegas on October 29th. We know he did this because in October 31st of 2029, the police led a raid to one of his Los Angeles houses and found a framed Southwest Airlines plane ticket to Las Vegas.
Eddie kept hounding me about his plans to go to Las Vegas, get a car, fill the truck with Sour Patch candy and Skittles, then drive to Los Angeles and start selling.
How do you expect to get through the inspection stations?
He said they let you pass if you had a California state license.
How did he get that?
What I was told was that he had a cousin, Julie Pena, who helped him lift a car with a California license and then immediately drove to Los Angeles. 4-hour drive done in the middle of the night while the owners were sleeping. Bing, bang, boom. He got away with it.
I couldn't deny that the plan, while sounding simple, was in fact so flawless that not only did it work, Eddie was able to sneak in at least 100 pounds of candy. Eddie, with his supply, his plan to avoid being arrested for tax evasion, he was prepared to start his ventures.
Didn't pop off for a long time.
Why would people want Swedish fish when there were other candies still available to satisfy their cravings? Eddie learned that the hard way and was barely able to sell some of his product. He had to get a job waitering at a local restaurant called Joey's Crabs, where he met probably his most important ally, Gus Maynard, a recently paroled arsonist.
I met Eddie on November 14th. He was a new hire at work. There's just something about him that drew me to him, you know? He wasn't the most charismatic, he wasn't the most smart, wasn't even the most good-looking tool in the shed. But there's just something about him. It was like he's a magnet that just drew people to him, you know?
Did he seem like someone who would ask you to set fires to stores and gas stations?
Heck no. He seemed like the type of guy who was more comfortable in the corner of a library with a book. No, but he understood me, you know? My desire, no, my instinct to burn things. He even gave me things to burn, things of his.
Didn't that seem odd to you?
It was like he was the life raft in a world full of people that hated me and wanted to hurt me.
It was in January 2024 when Eddie had enough of his slow sales when he finally asked Gus Maynard for a favor.
He gave me the last of his savings. It was about $3,000, I think, to just go within 5 miles of his apartment and burn down little convenience stores and gas stations. He even gave me a list of them to burn and even had the addresses on them in case I forgot.
You wouldn't happen to still have that list, would you? Gus Maynard burned down 4 7-Elevens, 2 APMPs, a Circle K, Miss Mini Mart, and 2 food marts, just to name a few in 3 days. It took the police 4 days to figure out it was Gus and arrest him. He was sentenced for 9 years, but was let out in 3 years when he got to enjoy the spoils of the candy rush. Now with Eddie having the only supply within a 5-mile radius, his sales of candy went up. The solution only led to new problems, first of which was the police. Word spread that a child had been caught red-handed with Skittles by their parents, loyal supporters of the sugar-free parents lobby. They called the police, who tracked down Eddie, But instead of making an arrest, the officers just grabbed a few sweets for themselves. Of course, they still filed a report because paperwork never skips dessert.
He said he lost control of his bowels for the rest of the day after the police came. But what finally brought me down to Los Angeles was what happened a week after that. Eddie called me and told me.
Nick is referring to a confrontation between Eddie and members of a local gang that were operating in that neighborhood. The gang believed Eddie was selling drugs and thus encroaching on their territory. Even though Eddie revealed he was selling candy, they proceeded to beat and rob him, stating he was a pedophile, and if they caught him selling in their neighborhood again, they'd kill him.
Eddie called me and told me what happened, how the gang had beat the shit out of him, stole most of the candy he had on him, and $1,000 he'd made that day. $1,000 in a day, though.
So you flew down to Los Angeles to help him deal with this?
I visited the hospital first. Checked on Eddie. He was in bad shape, and nothing a few days of R&R couldn't fix. But from there, I got to work.
And you killed them?
No. I just let them know that Eddie and I were not to be fucked with. Once that was settled and Eddie was out of the hospital, we really started making money. Our territory expanded. He continued to sell in Carson, and I moved to Torrance. People from the other side of the city were starting to drive to us for some Swedish fish. We started having to drive out of state at least twice a week just to keep up our supply. Eddie didn't like it. He thought those 14 hours driving back and forth were cutting into our money.
This is now where notorious candy driver Tanner Sutphin comes into the story. A former stunt driver in such movies as Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, Fast 5, and Baby Driver. Was currently out of work due to an accident he caused while under the influence when filming Russell Crowe's 2020 Unhinged. Blacklisted by Hollywood, Tanner was forced to work as a waiter, as fate would have it, at Joey's Crabs.
When Eddie came to me and told me about his delivery problem, I knew there's only one person that can get the job done.
Gus helped introduce Tanner to Eddie and was a big part of persuading Tanner to take the job.
Eddie was an idiot for hiring Tanner. Dude was a leech. I was a better driver than him, but Eddie trusted me to take care of candy sales. So if you want to blame anyone for the chaos that overtook California, you blame Eddie and his greed.
Still not wanting to take responsibility for his own actions, Nick blames Eddie, and in extension Tanner, for the candy wars that will rock the state of California. I was able to speak to Tanner's widow, Madison Ross.
Nick hated Tanner? That's a surprise to me.
After I told her how Nick blamed Tanner's involvement as the main reason for the candy wars.
Wow. Because they used to talk for hours together about cars and would have gone on for days if it wasn't for their need for food and sleep.
Did you know Tanner was involved with the candy smuggling?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was beyond thrilled to do it. Yeah, Eddie would pay him $3,000 a week to go to Vegas or whatever city outside of California to restock on supplies. He would have done it for free, though, just for the thrill of being behind the wheel again.
Tanner had a DUI that prevented him from driving. His license was revoked, and he didn't have any insurance. It was probably Eddie's most dangerous move after trying so hard to avoid the law.
My biggest concern wasn't about him getting in trouble for smuggling candy. Like, really? Candy? No, my concern was him getting arrested for driving without a license or insurance.
Madison made it very clear that if Tanner had been arrested, he probably wouldn't have snitched. But that still seemed to be a huge risk to take on someone you didn't know so well. Maybe Eddie's trust in Gus was increased when he committed those arsons.
I don't think Eddie knew Tanner didn't have a driver's license. I think if he did, he wouldn't have depended on Tanner as much as he did.
The induction of Tanner led the way to 9 people joining Eddie's business. How old were you when you joined Eddie's operation?
I was about 18 or 19, man.
Can you tell me more about how you got involved?
Yeah, I can do that. Mind if I vape in here?
Go ahead.
Cool. Thanks. I was hanging out with some friends, and I just got some really bad munchies. I really wanted some Swedish fish, just because, they're my absolute favorite and all that. So my friend, man, he pulls out a shoebox from under the couch. He's like, check this. Opens it up. He's got jelly beans, Swedish fish, Skittles, Sour Patch Kids, you name it. He's even got a few foreign things. I didn't even know they did Red 40 down there. Either way, he said, I asked where he got it from, and he said, well, I got some friends who were selling it out of the back of their car. Me at the time, I was broke. I needed an opportunity to make some money, so I asked him if there was any way we could get into that.
So you went to Eddie.
Well, yeah, and I brought a few of my friends to work for him.
Those friends Austin mentions was the beginning of the Pop Rockets. There was Sally G, aka Sweet Twist, who started off as a seller, who then became an enforcer before becoming one of the most feared members of Pop Rockets during the Candy Wars. There was also Calvin Avenel, who went by Cavity and became a driver for the Pop Rockets. He and Tanner would die in a Mentos explosion during the Candy Wars. I was able to talk to Sally Guerrero, also known as Sweet Twist, who was serving 2 life sentences in the LA Correctional Facility for the murder of 12 people during the Candy War.
Please don't ask any boring questions.
What is a boring question?
What every reporter asks. Did you do it? Do you have any regrets? Did you sleep with Sweetie? Shit like that.
Of course, I'll try not to have any boring questions then. Is it true you were an honor student?
Yeah, and?
Just, you're smart, I guess.
What, you think dumb people don't commit crimes? If you turn on the news, I'm sure you'll see some intelligent person committing some atrocity.
I mean, yes, but, usually smart people have, opportunities to avoid needing to commit, acts of violence like you have.
Okay, pendejo. You've got to stop swallowing that Disney shit. People do bad things because they want to. Pitiful reasons may help you get the jury on your side. At the end of the day, it's a choice to steal, kill, destroy, or do something legal.
Okay, I know. I was just trying to.
What, make me look like a fucking psychopath? Well, I'm not. What I did, I knew what I was doing. And now years later, I regret it. And the reasons why I did, it was not due to some sob story or an idea of grandiosity. I did it at the time because I could and I needed to.
I understand, Sally. I'm sorry for trying to imply differently. Unlike Nick, Sally G was more than straightforward with her crimes, intermittent with her own regrets and disgust with her past actions. She didn't want sympathy, but understanding. And I think that it was something the American public had a problem doing. So I'm going to try my best too.
Originally, we sold in pairs because Eddie didn't want what happened to him to happen to us. Despite him being an egotistical maniac, he really did care for those under him. So I was partnered with Hank.
Who's Hank? In all my research, especially to the early days of the Pop Rockets, there was no mention of Hank.
Well, he didn't stick around long. It was maybe a month or a couple of weeks.
Sally G went on to explain that Hank only took the job to get easy cash for his addiction. Sally said Hank stole a dozen or so jelly beans and Skittles. Nick went after him. She never heard from Hank again. I called Nick to ask about Hank.
I don't remember no Hank.
Sally said that you dealt with him when he stole candy?
I don't remember that.
But Sally's
a bitch. There was never a Hank.
Nick, as always, was a stone wall of information. So I went to the next best source, Austin.
Yeah, I remember Hank, but he didn't stick around very long.
Did he steal from you guys?
I don't remember that, but if he did, I would not be surprised if Eddie dealt with him or maybe even sent Nick after him.
So it does seem Sally was right. But was it Hank? And did deal with actually mean to kill Hank? or just to get the stash back, as Austin continues.
I remember seeing Hank when the candy wars were hot, but he seemed to have cleaned up.
After doing some digging, I found this possible Hank. I called Hank and he agreed to an interview at a local Starbucks near his house. We continued a correspondence through emails confirming dates, times, and topics we would be going over. The day before I flew from New York to Los Angeles, Hank emailed me that he was no longer able to do the interview. I tried calling, but he had blocked my number. Hank was alive, which confirms Austin's story and Sally's, but it left me confused as to why Nick would not admit knowing Hank. If he hadn't killed him, my editor suggested it's just Nick doesn't remember because it wasn't important to him. So back to Sally's story.
It was a week or two selling, making some pretty good cash, when I hear that there's some kid a few blocks away barging in on our turf.
So what did you do?
I let Eddie know. He wasn't worried. There was enough money to go around, and as long as our earnings weren't taking a hit, let bygones be.
Did you agree?
Of course. I mean, this was candy, not drugs like heroin. But that kid did not think like us.
There is an eyewitness report made to the police detailing the following. Sally G has more or less confirmed the eyewitness account is accurate. The boy had made an alliance with a former hitman who went for drugs, attacked Sally and her new co-seller, Stefan. Stefan was a brief member like Hank, but unlike Hank, Stefan did agree to the interview and stuck with it. Thank you so much for agreeing to this interview.
Thank you for the chance.
And I assume your current state has to do with your time as a pop rocket?
You're a smart cookie, aren't you, Sherlock?
Sorry.
No, it's obvious. Yes, my paralysis was caused by an attack by a rival candy seller who was going by the name of... Shit. What was that little fucker's name?
According to the records, his name was Axel Furlow.
I know his government name. I was talking about his code name or whatever.
Oh, yes. Sally said his alias was Jawbreaker.
What a stupid fucking name. Jawbreaker? Thought he was hot shit.
Axel Furlow, aka Jawbreaker, was a candy seller for a few good years and would later be killed by cops at the California-Mexico border, also called the Tecate Massacre, during the middle of the Candy War.
That dumb brat hired a hitman to kill me and Sally.
Did you ever think this was a possibility?
Dude, we were selling candy. Banned candy, but it was still candy. No, I never expected some snot-nosed kid to hire a guy to do a drive-by. Luckily, Sally was a good shot.
I know this might be an awkward question, but were you ever really jealous that Sally made it out unscathed?
Of course, man. Fuck, I still am. But, I don't know. Then I may not have met my wife. Hell, I could still be in jail like with Sally. Or I could have ended up dead like so many others.
Your wife?
She was the lady you met at the door.
I thought that was your nurse.
She is.
She was your nurse and you guys fell in love?
Yeah, and?
Nothing. It does bring up my next question. How could you afford this nice house and a full-time nurse, I'm presuming?
Eddie paid for it. Heck, and as well, he even left me some money to pay for my medical expenses.
Huh. I was surprised to hear that Eddie's will would have been followed through, since most of his money was through criminal dealings. Even if it was for selling candy, it'd still be subject to civil actions to forfeit it. When I brought this up to Stefan, he seemed to clam up and refused to talk about it further. This is going to be a difficult question for me to ask, but obviously, you being a member of the Pop Rockets, it probably doesn't surprise you that I would ask if you remember the night that you got shot.
I remember the night well. Sally and I were taking it easy, but she had to use the bathroom because she was downing Red Bulls like they were water. That's when one of our regulars walked up, and he came about every other day for a pack of Twizzlers. He was wearing a faded Hawaiian shirt, some ripped denims, and I thought his sunglasses were really cool at the time.
You have a lot of details down.
I replayed that night 100 times in my head. I ruined the opportunity to walk again because I spent so much time reliving it.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, Sally was on her way back. She was doing this half-jiggled dance thing, alternating between shaking her shoe and reaching down to try and snatch the toilet paper off of her shoe. I had just gotten the money for 2 packs of Twizzlers when Sally noticed the green Camaro coming around the corner. The window was already rolling down. The motherfucker was wearing a black trench coat like some cat out of the Matrix. He was already aiming his Ruger P-89. Sally was screaming, "Steven, gun!" And then that guy had a red hole in the middle of his throat, and I was tasting his blood in my mouth. His next 3 shots got me. 1 through my left knee, 2 through my chest. One of them made it through my back. The other one got lodged in my left lung. The last few things I remember from that night were Sally screaming my name, more gunshots, and then my head bouncing off the fire hydrant that I was standing in front of.
Was Sally able to get the guy?
No, he got away, but there was a sit down.
The dumb idiot wanted a sit down. I told him that things were heating up, rumors of other people selling candy in other cities and towns. We needed to build our rep, and it wasn't going to be done with no talking to some asshole who had just taken a run at us.
But the sit down did happen. Not one of the Pop Rockets knew what was done, except there was peace for the time being. And Axel Furlow, also known as Jawbreaker, had not yet formed his own crew, the Warheads, and most surviving members never heard him speak about the sit-down. Dr. Wonka, who was putting together a psych profile for the FBI during the height of the Candy Wars, had surmised it went like this. And how did you feel when you found out about Stefan?
I didn't find out about Stefan until months later. I don't know why Tanner didn't tell me when it happened. Like, was he nervous about my reaction, or was he sworn to secrecy?
It didn't seem to be like that. What do you think it was?
I don't know.
So, you guys...
I don't know what happened. I think Nick knows, but anytime I or Austin or anyone asked, he just shut it down.
Fine. You want to know what happened? While we were out, he got a text from the kid. Then we met Jawbreaker at an old oil field. Axel had the hitman in his trunk.
And then?
You called him Sweetie. I think that's a stupid, terrible nickname, but this was the night he became the idea of Sweetie that you all love so much.
I don't love...
Sure you don't. Or you wouldn't be digging into all this. You would let it go.
What happened next?
I held down the hitman. I think I heard Axel call him Willie. I held down Willie, and Eddie pointed a gun at Axel and gave him a knife. Kid couldn't have been more than 18. But Eddie gave him a knife and said, "It's you or him." forgot the way Willie was squirming. He begged Axel not to do it, but when he hesitated, Eddie fired a shot and Axel did it. Slit Willie ear to ear. Then we left. We left Axel with the body and we went home.
God damn.
So how did we come up with our code names?
Yeah.
Man, it was like a week or so before Stefan got clipped by Jawbreaker's goons down at the bay.
Alex Furlow?
Who?
Jawbreaker.
Right. Anyway, we were over at Eddie's house just setting up for the week. And it just kind of came up that we needed to come up with some candy-based nicknames or something. It was really dumb. So, Eddie gave us all of our nicknames, and after that, we decided to call Eddie Sweet E, because he was just so sweet to us.
Coming up this season on the Candy Wars. It sounds like you supported a nonsensical law former governor held just so you could win an election. I'm done with this interview. I am leaving.
When I busted that truck, it was the silver bullet we needed to prove that the candy companies were supporting the Pop Rockets.
What are you thinking right now?
I'm literally thinking, had he gone crazy?
This was produced by Coke Snyder, Lipton Smith, and me. Emily Walker is our production and operations manager. Ira Taffy is our editorial advisor, editing help from Holland Chocolate, fact checking by me. Support for the Candy Wars comes from Wafer Mortgage by Strawberry Loans. Lift the burdens of getting a home loan with a Wafer Mortgage and get a secure and transparent home loan approval in 30 minutes or less. Serial is a production of CBR, California Bureau Radio. Thank you.